Welcome to today's Explainer. Today, we're putting on our chef hats, right? We're stepping into the role of culinary judges to reverse engineer one of the most beloved, legendary, and devoured dishes on the entire planet. I'm talking about a dish whose flavor profile is universally recognized, but its true original creator, well, that remains a profound historical mystery. We are taking a deep dive into the origins of biryani. So get ready, because we're going to look at the history, the linguistics, and the ancient text to figure out exactly where this masterpiece came from. Let's get right into it. Okay, let's dive into this. Before we go back in time, we really have to appreciate the sheer, undeniable, modern obsession with this dish. If you look at the modern culinary map, the footprint of biryani is absolutely massive. It's wildly famous across the Indian subcontinent, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and its popularity stretches all the way to Iran, Dubai, and honestly way beyond. But it's not just a restaurant favorite. It is deeply woven into the cultural fabric. In so many Muslim households, there is literally no festival, no major celebration or joyous gathering that doesn't feature a massive, steaming pot of biryani right at the center of the table. It is the ultimate celebratory staple. And hey, if you want to understand just how devoted the modern consumer is to this dish, just look at this staggering number. 2. In the year 2020, data from the massive food delivery platform Zomato revealed that across India, 2 orders of biryani were placed every single second. Seriously, think about that. Every time you blink, another 2 biryanis are heading out the door. It was literally their most sold dish of the year. This isn't just popularity, we're talking about absolute unwavering devotion here. So moving on to the prep work, decoding the name. To begin our historical culinary investigation, well, we need to do our prep work. Just like a chef preps their ingredients, let's break down the base ingredients of the word itself to find our first clues. You see, the name biryani is actually derived from 2 distinct Persian words. The first is biryan, which means to fry something before cooking it, and the second is birinj, which simply translates to rice. So put them together and you technically get fried rice, but as anyone who has actually tasted this dish knows, while it translates to fried rice, through centuries of evolution, it became something uniquely different, far more complex and heavily spiced compared to what we traditionally think of as standard Asian fried rice. That brings us to Taste Test Theory 1, the Queen's invention. Now, what's really interesting about this is when we step into the royal courts of the mighty Mughal Empire. If we act like culinary judges evaluating a recipe's origin, we have 2 distinct variations of a really famous legend involving Queen Mumtaz Mahal, the wife of Emperor Shah Jahan. On one side, the legend goes that the queen was visiting the army barracks and found the soldiers looking incredibly weak and malnourished. Alarmed by this, she immediately ordered the royal chef to create a dish mixing meat for protein, rice for carbohydrates, and rich spices, resulting in this highly nutritious single-pot meal to build their strength back up. Then, on the flip side, we have an alternative campaign variation. The queen and the emperor were traveling with their soldiers on a military campaign. Everyone was exhausted, starving, and because they were on the move, their culinary options were extremely limited. Using some brilliant makeshift ingenuity, Mumtaz requested that whatever ingredients they had on hand, rice, meat, and spices, just be thrown together. And by sheer luck and culinary magic, this resourceful concoction turned out to be incredibly delicious and entirely unique. Now, regardless of which version of the Mumtaz legend you prefer, we have incredible, authoritative endorsements backing up this Mughal connection. Historian Lizzie Collingham firmly points out that the invention of biryani happened right there in the Mughal royal kitchens in the 15th century. What we know for sure is that following these early creations, this magnificent mix of meat and rice became a permanent, celebrated constant in Mughal dining, setting a gold standard for centuries to come. Let's look at Taste Test Theory 2, the Persian connection. As any good investigator knows, you have to follow every single lead. Was this dish actually an imported concept? Let's move to Bhutan and see how this builds, mapping out the incredible culinary journey of the dish. Step 1. The core concept of cooking meat and rice together in this specific style was actually conceptualized and invented in Persia. Step 2. The Mughals, who already had deep cultural ties to Persia, took massive culinary inspiration from this method. And step 3, when it was introduced to the Indian subcontinent, it didn't just stay a strictly Persian dish. It evolved. Local chefs began adding their own native ingredients, like specific combinations of cardamom, clove, and mace, creating distinct regional varieties. I'm talking about the fiery, robust Hyderabadi or the fragrant, subtle Lucknowi biryanis that we recognize today. And that leads us to Taste Test Theory 3, Ancient Indian Origins. Now we arrive at our final historical recipe. For this one, we are digging incredibly deep into ancient texts to see if there's evidence of an even older, localized origin. This theory centers around King Nala, the founder of the Nishida kingdom. Beyond just being a ruler, King Nala was renowned as a legendary cook. He's actually credited with a fascinating ancient text on cooking called the Pakadarpana. And within the pages of this ancient book, we find a recipe for something called mamsadana. This is a Sanskrit word that specifically translates to a dish of rice cooked together with meat. Sound familiar? It's arguably one of the earliest documented preparations that perfectly mirrors the foundational concept of biryani. But as a focused learner, you know we always have to evaluate the historical reliability of our sources. Let's look closely at the evidence here, because the big question historians debate is this. Did King Nala actually write the Pakadarpana with his own hand, or was it penned by a fiercely loyal subject documenting the royal recipes just to immortalize his king's legacy? The exact authorship might be up for debate, but the existence of this text proves that the core concept of a rich, spiced meat and rice dish was simmering in the Indian subcontinent way, way before the Mughals ever arrived. Finally, plating the verdict, a delicious unsolved mystery. So, we have tasted the theories, analyzed the texts, and tracked the migrations. It is time to plate the final verdict of our culinary investigation. So, the crucial point is this. Despite all our digging, the exact original creator, the singular person who cooked the very first pot of what we now call biryani, remains a tantalizing historical mystery. The reality is, we may never actually know their name. However, most culinary historians do ultimately credit the Mughal kitchens for refining the dish, beautifully blending Persian concepts with vibrant Indian spices to create these spectacular culinary architecture we know today. But honestly, the true winner of this historical mystery is the modern consumer, who gets to enjoy a dish perfected by centuries of cross-cultural collaboration. And I think this brilliantly illustrates how food is, quite literally, living history. So I'll leave you with this. After looking at the Queen's legendary kitchens, the Persian trade routes, and the ancient Sanskrit texts, which origin theory of biryani seems the most logical to you? Think about that the next time you take a bite of this legendary dish. Thank you so much for joining me in this explainer, and stay curious.